everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be the mid-year freakout tag. So this is a tag that I have done myself a couple of times in the past, and it's one of the only tags that I see a lot of book YouTubers doing kind of consistently. I have already filmed this video once about a month ago at the end of June when it's kind of supposed to be done, and I was looking back at the footage and I just looked so fed up in that video, so I thought I would just redo it. So it is a little bit late. It's currently I think the 27th of July, so it's not quite the mid-year point anymore, but I've read a couple of books this month that have replaced some of the answers for this tag, so I think that it's worked out pretty well overall. So at this point in the year, so from today, I've read 32 books this year. My goal for the year is to read 40 books, which I'm definitely going to do. I'm hoping that I can get to 50 books, but I set it to 40 because I know it's going to be a really mad, busy year. Well, it has been already, so I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. But yeah, hopefully we can get to 50 by the end. My average rating so far this year is 3.78, which I think is really good. I'm usually between like a 3.6, a 3.7. I've had quite a lot of 4 stars this year, which has been really good, and July especially has been a really good reading month, but I will talk about that a little bit more in my wrap-up video. But for this video, let's just get straight into the questions, shall we? So the first question is the best book that I've read so far this year, and I've only given 2 new books 5 stars. One of them is a fiction and one of them is a non-fiction. So let's start with the fiction. So this is one that I've read this month, and it's When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. I had so much fun reading this book. I got through it so quickly. This is basically a story about a little boy, let's call him Kiddo because that's kind of what he's referred to a lot throughout the book. And I can't remember the main girl character's name off the top of my head, but she is a young adult who basically stumbles across this boy in the midst of a very chaotic scene. I really don't want to say like a ton about the plot of this book because it's one of the most surprising and shocking books that I've read this year, but basically just know that it's a pretty bloody, gory horror, but it also has a lot of talk about found family, about dealing with your family and your parents. There's quite a lot of humour in this book, a lot of like silly scenes that do make sense overall, but were just a lot of fun to read about. This book even made me cry at the end, and I just really loved every second of it. I've not read a book this quickly for quite a while. I've seen this book hyped up everywhere. I feel like everyone loves it, and I would definitely recommend it. It's, yeah, like I said, one of the most fun books that I've read so far this year. And then my other 5 star I have talked about quite a few times, but I will just talk about it again if you're new here. It's Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. So Jon Krakauer was part of a tour group that were trekking up Mount Everest in 1996, and he was going to be writing a journalistic piece about Mount Everest and his experience going up there, but also the kind of wider look at tourism on Mount Everest. But unfortunately there was this huge disaster which resulted in many people dying, and this book is basically his account of those events. I just found this book so fascinating. I could not stop talking about it when I was reading it. I didn't really know a ton about the mountain itself, and I didn't especially think I was interested in it, but I was so fascinated. I loved learning about the Sherpas that live there and about its history and the people that initially climbed it and how it's become such a popular goal for people to want to climb Mount Everest. I loved learning about the tour companies, and it looks into some of the issues around that, the ethics of people being able to pay a sum of money to be guided up the mountain, putting themselves at risk, other people at risk, and also the pressure that tour companies have when they're relying on people's money to make sure that that is a successful tour for that person. He talked a lot about obviously the people in his tour group when he was there and some of the things that may have contributed to the disaster that day. I sobbed my heart out at the end. I thought it was so sad, and I thought it was just one of the most interesting books that I've ever read. So yeah, these 2 are my only 5 stars of this year so far, and I would definitely highly recommend both of them. So the next question is the best sequel that I've read this year. I have only read 1 new sequel this year, but I did do a reread of the Hunger Games trilogy recently, so I think my genuine answer would be Catching Fire. This is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy. Catching Fire has always been my favourite film from the series, and I just absolutely love the arena and the actual games in this book. I gave this a 5 star back when I read it when I was like 15 or 16, but I do feel like it's a bit of a cop-out answer since I have already read this book before. But the only other book that I've read that's a sequel is A Court of Mist and Fury by by Sarah J Maas. I read this one towards the start of the year and I did actually really like this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. If you know me already, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of the romantasy genre. It's just not for me really, but I'm slowly getting my way through this series. I've only read the first two, but I really enjoyed this second one actually, and I thought it was a lot better than the first one. So if you have read the first one and you're not quite sure, maybe give the second one a go, because yeah, I did find that this one really opens up the rest of the fantasy world and really develops the proper romance for this series. So if we're going by a sequel that is new to me this year, then I would go with this. But I would say Catching Fire is probably the best one that I have read, even though I've already read it before. Next up is a new release that I've not yet read this year. So I'm going to mention 2 books. Again, I feel like I'm cheating for a lot of these questions. First up, we've got Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This came out earlier this year and it's one of my most highly anticipated releases for this year, but I've still not got my hands on it just because I've not really been buying a lot of books this year, unless I found them in charity shops. But I haven't found this one yet. This is a book about a woman who becomes infatuated with aeroplanes, or not becomes, I think she already is infatuated with them. And I just thought that sounded really fun and really funny. So yeah, I definitely need to find this one soon. And then the other one is Sunrise on the Reaping. This is the whole reason that I wanted to reread The Hunger Games again. Because I've seen so much hype about this book and I've got massive FOMO that I've not read it yet. But before I read it, I really wanted to reread The Hunger Games and also read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because I never read that at the time. I just kind of dismissed it as it was getting a lot of mixed reviews. So I will read this one soon. I just had to put in the work before. I am currently reading A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so hopefully when I finish that, I will read Sunrise on the Reaping not so long after that. So the next question is the most anticipated release for the rest of the year. And again, I've got 2. First off, we've got The Killer Question by Janice Hallett. I've really enjoyed some of Janice Hallett's books, but I've not read all of them. She did publish The Examiner maybe earlier this year, and I've decided I'm not going to read that one just because I don't think I'm going to love it. However, The Killer Question is set, I think, in a British pub, and I just feel like I'm going to really enjoy those vibes. I feel like it will be more similar to The Appeal, which is a very British book, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So I think that comes out maybe September. I'll put it on the screen here. And then the other one is We Are All Guilty Here by Karen Slaughter. So if you know me, you'll know that Karen Slaughter is one of my favourites. Her Grant County series is one of my most beloved series of all time, and I've really loved a lot of her standalone books as well. She does still come out with the Will Trent series books quite often, but they're just not my favourites, so I've only read maybe the first 5 in that series, whereas this one, We Are All Guilty Here, is apparently the start of a new police procedural series. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Again, I'm not entirely sure when this one comes out, but I will put it on the screen here. Okay, next question is the biggest disappointment of the year so far. Again, I've got 2. So I thought I would do the most disappointing book this year, but also my least favourite book of this year, because they're not the same. So my most disappointing is unfortunately Into the Fire by J.D. Wright. I did talk about this one in quite a lot of depth in my last wrap-up video. So I read this author's debut novel a few years ago when it was self-published, and it has now been traditionally published as, I think, After the Storm, and I really loved that book. I gave it 5 stars. I was really excited for this author, and then this is his second book, Into the Fire, and unfortunately I've given this a 2.5 star, probably just because I had really high expectations going into it, but I did have quite a few issues with the characters, some of the writing choices, which again I did go into in quite a lot of detail in that other video, so I will link it down below if you're interested. So unfortunately this one is my most disappointing book of the year, but I do think that a lot of people will still like this one. So I also wanted to mention my worst book of the year so far, and that is Helpmeet by Nabhan Ruthnam, I think. It's a horror novella about a woman who's looking after her husband who's got this condition where he's basically rotting, his body is falling apart and she's looking after him. Honestly, I just didn't like this book at all. I thought it was a bit pointless in my opinion. I didn't like the characters or their relationship. I didn't really have much sympathy or any feelings whatsoever towards them. I didn't really get the plot, I didn't get the writing. It just didn't work for me at all, and I barely remember it, even though I feel like I should have really enjoyed this book. It's a weird horror but it just did not work. So that is my worst book that I've read this year so far. Next up, we've got the biggest surprise of the year, which I'm going to say is Bee Stings by Benjamin Myers. This one drew my eye, I think maybe firstly because of the cover, but also the fact that this is described as an American Southern Gothic set in Northern England. So in this book we're following a girl who's taken a baby and she's being chased down by a priest and a poacher. This book for me was very, very close to a 5-star. I've given it 4.5 stars. I love the writing style in this book. I loved the characters. I really love the dialogue, especially between the poacher and the priest. I just thought their dynamic was really funny to read about. The atmosphere was incredible. The survival, like nature writing, was really, really good. A lot of it was quite disgusting and disturbing, but it just really worked, and I was really, really surprised to have loved this one as much as I did. It has a very, very shocking ending which I will never forget. There's a ton of trigger warnings in this book. I think if you're into the Cormac McCarthy style writing, or like I said, if you like American Southern Gothic vibes, then I would highly recommend this one. The next question is new favourite author of the year, and I think I'm going to have to say Nat Cassidy. Even though I've only read one of his books, I've given it a 5-star, and I think I'm the most excited to continue reading from his backlist. I've had Rest Stop on my TBR for quite a while, and I have a strong feeling that I'll really like that one. And then I probably will go back and read Mary and maybe Nestings. I've heard about those books for quite a few years now. I've heard that people really like them, but I just never really thought they were for me. So I'm definitely excited to go back and try some of those. The next question is my favourite character of the year so far. So I'm going to say Muriel from The Hard by David Sodergren. This is another really fun horror book. It's set on an island, I think, in Scotland. And we're following Muriel, who is in her 80s. She's basically being bullied to leave her home so that this rich billionaire from America can come in and turn her precious island into like a golf course or something. And fun fact, I read this earlier this year, but at the minute there is a certain somebody who's visiting Scotland to use their golf course, and I never realised that that obviously ties into The Heart. So now it's even better, like thinking that it was written about a certain somebody. But anyway, basically Muriel is just this stubborn, funny old lady, and I just love what happens with her in this book. She's on a mission for revenge and to protect her island, and it was both funny and gory, and I just really enjoyed it. So I would definitely say Muriel. And then the next question, I've kind of tweaked it a little bit because it's favourite crush or something. I don't really get crushes from books because I'm not often reading stuff that puts people in a desirable light. So I thought I would turn it into like favourite character duo or like dynamic, something like that. So for this one, I'm going to say How Can I Help You by Laura Sims. The two main characters in this, so they are called Margot and I want to say Patricia, but I think she says it like Patricia. I've never heard it like that before, but I'm pretty sure there's a point where she spells her name as Patricia. Oh no, that's wrong. It's Patricia. Patricia. Okay, so I've been saying her name wrong the whole time. So in this book, we start by following Margot, who is a librarian, and she's clearly got some sort of dark, secret past that she doesn't want people to know about. And then this new librarian arrives at the library, who we now know is called Patricia, and they both become just kind of fascinated by each other. Margot is obviously trying to like contain who she really is, and then Patricia starts to get a little bit suspicious of her, and it's a little bit of a cat and mouse between these librarians of like who's going to come out on top. You know, like is Patricia going to find out what Margot really is? What's she going to do with that information? Or is Margot going to succeed in hiding who she really is? And it was just very fun and interesting. It's only quite a short book. I think it's like 200 pages long, but especially in the last half of this book, I was properly hooked. I didn't want to put it down. I was excited to keep picking it back up. And I just really liked the dynamic between these two women, and they were both very well fleshed out characters. So I will say that they are my favourite like duo. Not necessarily a romantic duo, but I thought that was just a better way for me to do the question because I'm just never going to have a fictional crush. Next question is books that made me cry, and there's been quite a few this year actually. I've been quite a blubber when it comes to reading. So first up we've got Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by Huma Qureshi. I can't remember the name of the story. I'll try and put it on the screen. But it was about this mother and daughter, and the mother was very, not possessive, but She really wanted to be in her daughter's life, and her daughter was like really pulling away and didn't really want her mother involved. And that was just really sad to read about, and that one made me cry. Next up, obviously, Into Thin Air. I've already mentioned this, but this made me sob like a baby. Another one that made me cry, I do have it here. I did have it here, but I don't know where it is. It's The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. That book made me cry at the end. Another one that made me cry at the end was The Return of Ellie Black, which is a thriller. So I don't know what was going on with me when I read that, but the ending scene just really pulled on my heartstrings and I loved it. And then most recently, When the Wolf Comes Home, I did cry at the end of that as well. So there's been quite a few actually. Next up, we've got a book that made me happy. So let me just grab her. It was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This book made me so happy because I was so excited to be reading a book that I loved when I was younger. I used to love a YA dystopia so much, and to love it the same the second time round was just lovely. I gave it 5 stars again. So this one really made me happy. It got me out of a reading slump and it made me just really excited about reading again. So definitely this. But then I would also say Disney High by Ashley Spencer. That is a non-fiction book basically about the rise and fall of the Disney Channel. And as somebody who lived and breathed Disney Channel when I was a teenager, it was just really fun to read about all the insider gossip and all the like behind the scenes drama about shows that I loved, like Lizzie McGuire, That's So Raven, Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, High School Musical, all of that good stuff. So this was just a nice breath of fresh air compared to some of the other dark stuff that I love to read. The second to last question is the most beautiful book that I've bought this year. As I mentioned, I've not really been buying a lot of books, but I would say Bee Stings is probably my favourite cover. Although I don't actually know if I bought this in 2025 or if I bought it last year. So I do know that I bought this one, Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh, this year because I found it in a charity shop. I do just really love the cover of this one as well. And then the last question that we have is all the books that I want to read by the end of 2025. And as everybody else says, how long have we got? Because there's a ton that I really want to read. But for this part of the video, I thought I would give you a bit of an update on my books that I want to read in 2025 and let you know where we're at with that and what I have left to read. So out of the 25 books, I've read 7, which isn't great. I've DNF'd or removed from my TBR 4 of them, and I've still got 14 to read, so I'm not doing very well actually. But I thought I would just quickly mention the 14 books that I still have to read. Don't worry, I won't talk about all of them in detail, so I will just whiz through them. First off, we've got Lost in the Garden by Adam S. Leslie. This one is going to be on my immediate TBR because I really want to read it in summer, and we are slowly approaching the end of summer, so this one is going to be one of the next books that I read. Then I've got Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConney. This is a library edition, so I really do need to prioritise this because I'm sure it will be due back very soon. Then I've got Reservoir Tapes, which is the companion book to Reservoir 13 by John McGregor. I really need to read this one because Reservoir 13 was like one of my favourite books of last year, and I need to get to it before I completely forget about that book. Next is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. The more I hear about this book recently, the less I want to read it because I've seen so many people say that this is like seriously overhyped. Why did it win a prize? It's boring. So I will try and get to this year because it is tiny, but yeah, I feel like I'm being put off by everyone that I've seen talking about this. Next is The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. This is the final book in the Poppy War trilogy. Again, another one that I desperately need to read. I think I'll probably save this for when it's a little bit colder because I do prefer like a big chunky fantasy when it's like wintry time. And if I leave it any later than that, then I'm going to forget everything that happened in the first 2 books and it's just going to be pointless. So this one is another priority. Another library book that I have is It Lasts Forever and Then It's Over by Anne Marken. So again, this is I think going to be on my immediate TBR. And then the last 2 I do own them. Animal by Lisa Taddeo. This has been on my TBR for the longest time, and if I don't read it this year then it's getting binned. Well, not binned, it's going to be going to a charity shop or sold on Vinted, but you know, I will be getting rid of this from my TBR if I do not read it this year. And then lastly, we've got Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, is it? Yes. Is this a autumn wintry kind of book? If you could let me know in the comments, then I can plan when exactly I'm going to read this one. And then let's just reel off the rest of them. I think I've got most of them on my Kindle. So Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and this one is the memoir of the survivor in the Stanford sexual assault case. I do want to read it soon, but I know it's going to be harrowing and I am putting it off a little bit because of that. Then we've got The Wall by Marlon Haushofer, Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy, Of Catalan Men by Anna Paula Mai, maybe? Sky Daddy, which I've already mentioned in this video, by Kate Folk, and then lastly Shark Heart by Emily Hebeck. So those are all the ones that I don't own physically, but I do still want to get to them by the end of this year, hopefully. I'm going to be filming an August TBR probably today, which is going to include quite a few of those books because I'm seriously slacking and I need to prioritise them. But anyway, that's the end of the questions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please comment down below with your answers to these questions, or if you've posted your own video, then let me know and I can check that out. Please do give this video a like if you enjoyed it so that I know, and also because it helps my channel. Subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!